Good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning, my lovely students. This is our last unit in World Civ. We're talking about a little Western Hemisphere action, our neck of the woods. And geez, this is lecture 15, let's see, 16, 17, 18. I don't know if we're going to get to 18 or not. We're going to try. We don't have much time left. I'd like to do a little presentation on the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas, but don't know if I'm going to make it. So this is a all-encompassing presentation about the beginnings of civilization here in the Western Hemisphere. Hallelujah. Okay, the four essential questions we're going to be coping with is how did the lay of the land, the physical nature of the Western Hemisphere impact the development of cultures? What exactly is meant by Mesoamerica? Who are the Olmecs? And what was shaman? So those are the four questions I want you to be able to answer at the end of this presentation. And I have to start out with something, this concept of the first migrants. Look at this time frame. 35,000 to 15,000 BCE. And it reminds me of this thing. I had this cheesy guy that I was friends with, and he was like a historic dude. So I tried to think about what to get him for Christmas. So we got him the Smithsonian Institute Genome Project, in which he had to like spit in this vial. We sent it to Washington, and then they would trace your ancestors back to where you came from. Everybody came from Africa. I mean, I could have saved $75 if I just would have sent him a card that said you're from Africa. It would have helped out a lot. But if you look at this map here, here's what we're talking about. Now, I think that this is fascinating. There's a theory, of course, plate tectonics is popular, that the Bering Strait was not a body of water at one point, and that people just walked from Asia across Alaska, down the coast, the Pacific coast, into what is today the United States, and then down through Central America into South America. So the first migrants showed up from Asia. Geez, look at this, 35,000 to 15,000 BCE. That's crazy. I really like this map here. It's like the Mayan world, like it's this huge amusement park. And this is the Yucatan Peninsula, which is southern Mexico. And yes, you can tan on the Yucatan if you go there. Cheesy joke, sorry. And if you go to a place called Cancun or Cozumel, it is absolutely required that you go to this place called Chichen Itza, which is a great Mayan ruins, kind of like the pyramids in Egypt, although not quite as high. There we go, right there. This is, I think, called Calipe. I forget the name of it. But this is the Mayan Civilization, a great example. And the Mayan Civilization thrived between 200 and 900 CE. Now, this was after ancient Egypt. And one thing that's going to happen is when the Spaniards are going to arrive in the 14 and 1500s, they're going to find a civilization that was totally isolated. It was like a time capsule. And they were just mesmerized by it. Now, the horrible things that used to take place on the top of this pyramid, we're going to learn a lot about over the next couple weeks. And the Aztec Civilization was in the plateau of Mexico. And look, 1300 to 1500, short-lived. The Spaniards wiped them out. But this is a gruesome, gruesome picture. These are some Aztec priests, and as you can see, they're busy. They each have a basket full of hearts to consume. So after you were sacrificed, the Aztec priests would often eat your heart, which I don't think sounds very appetizing. Maybe on Valentine's Day. And then the Inca Civilization, again, 1300 to 1500, centered in the Andes Mountains. And this civilization had an abrupt ending as well because the Spaniards showed up. But I love this picture, man. If there's a place I'd like to go sometime in my life, I'd like to go to this place called Machu Picchu, which is in Peru. You can see the terraced flat parts of it. And it's one of the most visited tourist attractions in the Western Hemisphere. Let's go. Okay, now, I just alluded to this, but there are three distinct geographic environments in which these civilizations emerged. This is talking about how the surroundings or the physical nature of South and Central America impacted its development. And this term, Mesoamerica, is somewhat confusing to people. What we're talking about is southern Mexico. This is the Yucatan Peninsula right here, Gulf of Mexico, obviously. Going into Central America, what would be like Belize and Nicaragua and Panama. So this area right here, and this Yucatan Peninsula in particular, is going to be the headquarters of the Mayan faith, of Mayan civilization, excuse me. And it's where our movie called Apocalypto is going to take place. Now, the plateau of Mexico, the Altiplano, is right here in the central part of the country. It's dry, it's arid, it's really high, hence Altiplano, high plain, tabletop. Over here you have a mountain range called the Sierra Madre Oriental, Sierra Madre Occidental. I think they should put the Oriental on this side. But what you have is this high like rolling plateau in the middle of Mexico called the Altiplano. It's where the Aztecs are going to reside. And then last but not least, we have the Andean region. The Andes Mountains are some of the most spectacular mountains in the world. I love this picture. Mount Aconcagua, which is, I believe, in Bolivia, is the highest Andes Mountains. And we're talking about almost 23,000 feet. Much higher than any Rocky Mountain, higher than Mount McKinley in Alaska. And if you were to look at the Andes Mountains, if you were like to take the top part here, which would be up in Colombia, and go all the way down here to Chile and Argentina, we're talking about an area that would stretch from central Mexico all the way up into Canada. And these mountains, on the tops of them, are absolutely impossible to reside in. So this mountain region is going to dictate the way Andean civilization evolves. Okay, so let's talk about these two early Mesoamerican, South American, Western Hemisphere, these two early civilizations that we're going to talk about. The first is the Olmecs from 1200 to 300 BCE. They're going to be the precursors to the Mayans and the Aztecs. And then Chauvin from 1200 BCE to 200 CE, and they're going to be the ancestors of the Incas in the Andean region. And what I like to do is I like to talk about the Mayan, the Olmec civilization, and later the Mayans, as being very similar to ancient Greece. And the reason I say that they're similar to ancient Greece, if you know your Greek history, ancient Greece was made up of independent city-states that were very different, like Athens and Sparta, but they had a common language and they had a common religion. Hence, they had a common culture. That is what's true of the Mayan people. There was never a big Mayan empire. You had all these little city-states, but they spoke the same language and they had the same religious beliefs. The Olmecs, this is a blurry picture, I want to apologize to you. This is the Bay of Campeche right here, between Yucatan Peninsula and the rest of Mexico. And the Olmec civilization started here, 1200 BCE, that's a heck of a long time ago. And you can see the pink Olmec cultural influence before 2,000 years ago. So all throughout the Yucatan Peninsula is this tremendously similar city-states with these plazas and this human sacrifice and calendar obsession and all these things. Okay, this is really interesting. Look at this image, this recreation. Here's San Lorenzo right here. And then look what they think it might have looked like. Isn't that amazing? So San Lorenzo, this is where you start to see these Mesoamerican traits first emerge in this amazing city. Here are some examples. Raised fields for farming. So it's a swampy area. They're going to build up certain areas and drain it off and use that area to grow crops. That's big. That's something that's going to happen throughout Mayan culture. Something else is the city was nothing more than a vast flea market. If you ever go to the farmer's market in Sunbury on the square on Saturday morning, that's the same concept. That's the same concept. So the city was like a place where people would come in from the countryside and sell their products. But something else that you're going to see in this area is you're going to see these massive public buildings. These massive public buildings, and what takes place on the tops of these buildings is just awful. It's human sacrifice. And that's going to be the case throughout the Western Hemisphere in all these cultures. And when the Spaniards got there in 1500 CE, they're going to think that these civilizations came from the pit of hell because they're obsessed with human sacrifice. So probably some priest is cutting some dude up and he's going to toss him off the top. And you're going to see that in the very disturbing movie I'm going to show you. Love this image of raised platforms. These are Mayan ruins in the Yucatan. And something else that was very prominent, not just in Central America, but also in South America, are these mutant animal deities. So here you got this thing that looks like a snake, but it also has like feathers coming out of it, and it's chomping on this dude. So these mutant animal deities, they're popular. Once again, human sacrifice. I mean, the whole society, it's like the wheels of society was greased by the blood of sacrifice victims. And as we're going to learn as we watch this video, when Mayan people and Aztec people and to a large extent Inca people would go to war, a lot of times they were trying to capture their enemies and not kill them because they wanted to take them and sacrifice them. But one thing that's really interesting when it comes to the Olmecs, and the Olmec civilization died out around 300 BCE, because people just left the urban centers for some odd reason. The same darn thing's going to happen with the Mayans about 1,000 years later. One thing that we have from these ancient Olmecs are these amazing heads, these stone-carved heads. And you may have heard of similar heads on the Easter Island, which is out in the Pacific Ocean, but it's just, we're lost as to why these things were carved. Apparently it must be some important people. It's kind of like Mount Rushmore. Now, Chauvin, on the other hand, we're talking about South America as opposed to Central America, but the time periods are similar, 1200 BCE to 200 AD, and this is the Andean civilization, so it's going to be remarkably different. I like to compare the early Andean civilization to ancient Rome as opposed to ancient Greece, and here's why. It's all about facilitating transportation between areas of this empire that can produce different things. Now, what's really interesting about the Andean region is you can, say, travel 5 miles and be in a dramatically different climate zone. So one area might produce potatoes, another area might produce sugar, another area might produce corn, and you're not traveling that far as the crow flies, but you're either going straight up or straight down. So what Andean civilization is all about, it's uniting diverse climate regions with outstanding transportation facilities, just like in ancient Rome. And just like in ancient Rome, the ancient Andeans were all about road building. Now, what's really interesting here is you look, and there's these stair steps going up the side of this very steep hill. You know, here in the West, or here in European-dominated civilizations, we often built switchbacks. In other words, to climb this mountain, the road would go here, and here, and here, and here, and here. And no place was at all that steep, and a horse could climb up it. In the Andean civilization, the Andean roads often had these combining steep stair steps that llamas could go right up. Here's another similarity between ancient Rome and ancient Andean civilization. It's the concept of the mita, or universal service. In other words, if you lived in the Andean region and you had the benefits of protection and prosperity, you were required to work for the state for a period of time. And this is the one way that they got things done. Okay, now there are some common characteristics. This is a pretty freaky slide here. I don't know, it looks like an enemy disco or something like this. There are some very commonalities between the Andean region and Mesoamerica. For instance, corn showed up in the Andes, which is a Mesoamerican crop, and potatoes showed up in Mesoamerica. So that's a good example of agricultural trade. Bronze was pioneered in the Andes, but also emerged in Mesoamerica. And both places looked at the city as a central marketplace. They had raised platforms, and they had human sacrifice. Hallelujah. But something else that's really interesting is this concept of these mutant animal deities. And you can find this throughout Mesoamerica and the Andean region, the concept of jaguar man. This sleek, beautiful animal that combines with humans and creates this very powerful image. And we're going to see something really interesting in the movie. There's a lot of references to jaguars. You're going to like it. Maybe you're going to like it. It might horrify you. Okay, that's it for lecture 15. Now we're going to get more specific in the next presentation.